Today I'm going to talk about a book called Unsouled. Unsouled is the first book in the series Cradle by Wight. Cradle is a progression fantasy novel, a xianxia novel to be exact. It's a westernized Eastern fantasy. The official synopsis goes like this. Sacred artists follow 1,000 paths to power, using their souls to control the forces of the natural world. Lyndon is unsouled, forbidden to learn the sacred arts of his clan. When faced with a looming fate he cannot ignore, he must rise beyond anything he's ever known and forge his own path. Now, Lyndon lives in the Sacred Valley, and he's part of a clan called the Wei clan. Now, originally, then find out that Lyndon is something called an unsouled, and unsouled means that he's unable to practice the sacred arts. What are the sacred arts? Well, they're kind of magical martial arts. So people who practice the sacred arts can draw energy in from the world around them into themselves, and they can use it to not only perform feats of magic, such as shooting fire from their hands, but they can also use it to basically elevate their state of being. So there are things called advancement ranks, and basically what that allows them to do is when you break through to the next rank, then you actually increase in speed, strength, overall power, essentially, and you become a higher level of being. So when Lyndon is unsouled, this is a pretty big deal because everyone is supposed to be able to practice the sacred arts, and everyone does this. So originally, Lyndon is looked down upon and kind of viewed as shameful for his inability to practice the sacred arts as an unsouled. In fact, he's forbidden from practicing them. But eventually, he has an encounter with this heavenly being who basically, when she sees his courage despite his relative weakness, takes pity on him and shows him his future. As it turns out, in his future, the entire Sacred Valley is destroyed by these monstrous beings called dread gods. Now, after he pleads with her, wondering what to do, then she basically shows him that he needs to become incredibly powerful in order to stop the dread god from destroying the Sacred Valley. As anyone powerful enough to stop the dread god, he would not be able to ask them for help. So thus begins his incredible journey to the peak of power. Now, I thought that this book was much more polished and refined than most of the other books in this genre, as you could tell there was a lot of thought put into the plot. There's some great foreshadowing, and the magic system is very well fleshed out. The main character has a very natural and understandable character given his origins. He is humble, not domineering like a lot of other characters in the genre, although he is sometimes a little bit bland because he is always very polite and proper and conscious of social status. He is smart but not brilliant, so while he does sometimes use a few tricks to get by during his fights, he doesn't make that an integral part of his strategy. He's not a particularly strong schemer. His wins and losses are realistic, although not always the most satisfying. He is strong but not incredibly skilled due to his low starting point. When I say strong, I mean strong against people of his level power-wise. He often pulls off draws or wins through tricks instead when he's fighting someone more powerful than him, although he doesn't always necessarily win against those people either. He loses sometimes, and he doesn't have unexpected breakthroughs during fights, so no unexpected power-ups. I think that is good for some people. If you really appreciate the realism and the consistency, then that's great. Although it's not necessarily satisfying if you really just want some constant face slapping. I do appreciate how you get to kind of see the entire power scale right off the bat, as well as the general path of cultivation. So you find out pretty early on what the different levels of advancement are, as well as the highest heights you can reach as the heavenly being that showed him his future was one of the strongest beings in the entire multiverse. His character has a defined goal. So you find out from the beginning his essential reason for becoming stronger is to save his home from the Dread God. And to do that, he needs to become incredibly powerful. The world building is done pretty well. So you do get to see that there are many different places in the world, even if they haven't really been talked about. You find that it's set in a place that's sort of analogous to China, although you do meet characters from faraway continents with different ethnicities. Most of the names are a cross between sort of Chinese and other Western-ish. Like the main character's name is Wei Shi Linden, which the Wei Shi part is Chinese, but the Linden part is obviously not. This book is set inside the Williverse, which is the author's overarching cosmic united world. Cradle is one of the worlds or iterations inside of the Williverse. So there are some references to the other books that he's written, but you don't actually need to read them to enjoy the book. He also has a friend, Yeren, who accompanies him along his cultivation journey. So Yeren he meets when he's trying to leave the Sacred Valley, and she is from the outside world, so she acts as his guide and mentor. She does have a unique character that I appreciate. She is an enjoyable person to read about, and I'm very glad that the author stayed away from a lot of stereotypes that could crop up in a lot of books like this one. Overall, I think this was a fun read. There was obviously a ton of thought and planning that went into the world and into the plot, and I think it was a really refreshing and interesting take on the genre. Now, I wouldn't recommend this if what you're looking for is a lot of face slapping and stomping on enemies, but I think if you're looking for a really well-defined and polished version of a xianxia with natural character motivations, then this is definitely the book for you.